So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, Diwali is a very special occasion for all of us. It is one of the true celebrations in Trinidad and Tobago that is, multi-ethnic, multi-racial. Every single person, much like Christmas, no matter what religion that you belong to, no matter what sect you belong to, you find a space in this whole philosophy around many months, moons ago I should say, about a story in the Ramayana that is connected to Diwali, but it's before the lighting of the years. And it's a story about King Dasrath, Queen Kahiti, Queen Kausalya, Bharat, and Lord Ram. And there is a particular conversation that happened on a day, which if you dissect the rationale in their conversation, it speaks to what we are as a society and how we ought to behave and how we ought to conduct ourselves. And if I were to refer you back to that story, when King Dasarath was in a battle and he was injured, Kekini saved his life basically, and he gave her 2 boons, and he said, look, for saving my life, I promise to give you these 2 boons whenever you want it, at any point in time. And so happened, she chose to ask for these 2 boons just when the king decided that he has to transfer the crown to one of his sons. And the boon she asked was that, listen, I want you to give the crown to my son, that's Bharat. And I want you to banish your next son for 14 years. Now understand this, that the king knows very well that those 2 action items could throw that whole kingdom into despair and disharmony. But the king understood the value of his word. And we live in a society today where sometimes words have very little meaning. Very few people stand by their word today because we flip-flop every Monday morning. But the king understood the importance of his words, and he ran the risk of creating chaos and mayhem. But you know what? He made a promise, and he gave his word, and he stood by his word. So he calls Ram, says, partner, I need to talk to you and have some news. So he calls him and he says, look, I am going to make Bharat, your brother, king. But I'm going to give you the kingdom of the forest. Understand the wisdom of the king here now. Eh? He sold the idea to Ram that while I'm giving your brother the kingdom, which is this, I'm going to give you the kingdom of the forest, which is this. But there's a very subtle message inside here as well, about being tactful, about being smart with your language. And it also means sometimes when you don't get what you want, what you end up with is much bigger and better, if you look at it in a particular way. So perhaps when you fight for things and you don't get what you want, what you end up with is much bigger. So the king was smart enough in using that language to tell Ram that, listen, I give you something bigger to operate with. I'm depending on you to look after the kingdom of the forest. Ram understood honor. And when your father talk, your father talk. When your father says something, it is not to argue with him. And Ram understood that. And we speak about discipline in the home. When your parents speak, they are speaking from a point of wisdom, knowledge. And the lesson that Ram is teaching us there is that his father, although he didn't agree with it, he listened to his father and he accepted what his father had said. So Lord Ram now have to go and tell his mother, Kausalya, what went on. So he had to be a little smart now. So he goes into the room and he tells his mother, Ma, Bharat is going to be king, and I am going to be sent as the king of the forest. And he was smart enough Not to tell her it's for 14 years. He started 1 year and 2 year and 3 year and 5 years until he reached 14 years. Now the lesson to learn there is that sometimes our language, how we say things, how we do things, how we send messages, we must not say it in a way to create despair, anger. You find a way that it becomes subtle and acceptable. You find a way. And Ram was able to do that in terms of managing his mother's emotion. And let me tell you how smart this lady was. If I tell my mother that my mother run in and kick down some door and beat somebody. But you know what his mother did? She understood that the welfare of the kingdom and the sanity of the people there depends on her reaction. So she smartly accepted what was said, and she told Ram that's a good thing. Now understand, all of them know the prophecy. They all know the prophecy of who Ram was and what he is destined for. But Kausalya, in her wisdom as a mother, understood the importance of not creating division, not creating problems to further break the family unit apart. And she knew that. And that's a lesson there. Sometimes we have to make sure that when decisions are being made, you take a position where you don't destroy the family. And she was smart enough to do that. And then on the other side of it, you had Bharat, who admittedly accepted the crown, but he was never happy for it, because he remained loyal to Ram until his return. So when you read, excerpts of the Ramayana and you read our scriptures and so on, it is just not for reading's sake. It's there for interpretation. It is there for us to model and to guide our own life on how we act and how we react, and how do you manage the relationship to make sure that you remain strong at the end of the day. And that is a lesson that I have had to learn this year. And I have seen things happen in our space, and nobody's perfect. But we learn the lessons and we move on. And nothing is impossible to repair. No problem is insurmountable that a little dialogue and a little conversation can't fix it. But you need to be willing to do it. You must be willing to create harmony. And if you're not, then there will be none. That is how life is. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a pundit. I don't read scriptures too often, but I listen well. And I try every time I go to a Ramayana puja and I hear the message, I try to bring it back home to my own experience. And what can I learn and what can I take? Because I always say at functions like these, you are not here by guess. You didn't turn up in the audience here by guess, because God would have ordained and presented to you an opportunity to come here this evening. And whatever you gain and you learn and the relationship that you have and the person that you meet and you hug and you kiss and you say hello, that has value. And you are here because of that. And I want to thank you for the gift of your time, listening to the short story and understanding my interpretation of it.